100 most influential people. And you wrote this about Senator Marco Rubio. Watching him operate in D.C. is refreshing as he continuously seeks common ground with Democrats on issues like job growth and immigration without violating principle. Rubio is the real deal, and I, for one, look forward to watching him contribute to the rebuilding of our great country in the years to come. What makes Marco Rubio so special to you?
Well, first of all, he's a gifted person. He's an enormous talent. He speaks, he combines a cerebral nature with a heart that the combination when it comes out is it's just poetry. I mean, the guy is, without a teleprompter, he is I think the most eloquent person in the American political scene today. So that's a gift, and that helps. But he's combined that with a thirst for, growing into the job. He's on the Foreign Relations Committee and spends an enormous amount of time learning the job. He has the humility to recognize that in order to be effective, he has to take advantage of that learning process. He's hopeful and optimistic rather than negative and pessimistic. The world operates far better, I think, when our spirits are lifted rather than when we're looking down and constantly thinking that things are worse. And I mean, my personal belief is we have man-made problems, and we can solve them by men and women. We can solve these problems, but we have to begin to do so. And so Marco has an approach, I think, that will emerge that's not just about sound bites and taking a political position, but really working hard to find common ground. It's hard to do. It requires a little bit of patience and creativity, but you have someone here, and here's the challenge. And you can't solve the problem if they're just talking. They're talking past each other. You have to engage and find some way, even if it's on small things, that builds success that allows for the next thing to be done. And not many people in Washington do that. He's doing it. And it's a trait that, again, having the experience here helps.
Do you think he's found common ground when it comes to immigration reform?
He's trying.
He's attempting to provide legal status without citizenship for young people here. It won't cover everybody, but they will be able to study, live legally here, join the military, and then work.
Right. I thought it was the structure of the idea, and it's yet to be put out, at least I haven't seen the specifics of it, is an elegant, creative way to get past the current gridlock. I thought it was a pretty smart way of trying to deal with this. A lot of these things end up being, well, I have a position, I can't, I'm in my position. If I change my position, I'm going to get hammered by my supporters. That drives a lot of political discussion these days. So to try to find a way that gives people a chance to adhere to their principles, but recognize that a young girl who came here early in life from Columbia, who's a valedictorian in a high school in Miami, should be allowed to stay and should be allowed, if she's successful in her pursuit of a higher education, to be able to be here legally and make a contribution. I mean, my gosh, this is the United States of America.
You couldn't make it up.
No, I mean, and to suggest that somehow that we can't find a way to solve that while distinguishing that pursuit with someone who comes here illegally, who's a drain on society or who commits crimes or whatever. I mean, we've got to figure out we've got to be better at this, that's all. And so Marco's trying to do that, and I think he's to be admired for it.
And the Republican Party has found some solutions to immigration reform, such as temporary protective status, which was done for humanitarian reasons. It's not like you're reinventing the wheel.
Helen, again, and this whole issue, always the finger is pointed at the Republicans for being so insensitive. And the Democrats, again, they don't really care if it actually happens. They just want the political fight to be here. The president, without a whole lot of news, changed the asylum process unilaterally in the last month, where if someone comes to the border and has a well-founded fear of persecution, they're not allowed in. Now, that troubles me too. Where's the outcry? Where are the protests? which Democratic leader is asking for a hearing to determine whether a pretty noble principle in our country of when people are being persecuted, that they can pursue those claims in our system.
Governor Mitt Romney is critical of the federal role in education and says that if elected, he'll shrink the size of the Department of Education. You've been a big fan of Secretary of Education Arne Duncan. Do you need to have a conversation with Governor Mitt Romney on education?
Well, I know I've spoken to Mitt Romney about education, and shrinking the size of the department is okay. I don't know. It depends on what part shrunk, I guess. And I think Mitt Romney understands that there is a role for the federal government, albeit a limited one, to help, but it shouldn't just be to fund the blob. So I know they're looking at ideas regarding just, do we transfer money that we don't have, it's financed by our children, I guess, to the states without any strings attached, without any focus on reform? Is there any way to empower parents to make decisions for themselves? This is what they're looking at. And so I think in a smaller Department of Education, the federal government could play a role, but maybe under a Romney administration, it might move to playing a role that promotes more competition, more choices, higher standards, greater accountability, which I'd be for. And frankly, I would have hoped, given the fact that Arne Duncan has done a good job as secretary, that he would be empowered to kind of offer those alternatives now, but it hadn't happened.
Florida Governor Rick Scott's approval numbers are very low, even though the economy is improving in Florida. How do you assess him as a governor?
Well, I never really had high approval ratings. They were higher than this, so I don't have personal experience in the low, the mid-30s or low 40s or whatever. But I did learn something, which is you just have to do your job, and over time, either people will respect you for the job you're doing or they won't. And not fret too much about job approval ratings, because sometimes you can do things to make them go up, but they go back down immediately. And if you keep doing that and you're not doing your job, you're missing the opportunity to serve, which is the coolest part of the job. So I'm sure he doesn't fret about this too much, which is smart. I know his heart's in the right place. The guy's committed to his principles, which I admire. He's not, he would be the first to say that he's not like he's not Clinton-esque with his, his personal hanging out with people kind of thing. Seems a little awkward in that regard, but so what? People are people. People have different personalities. His work will be measured over a 4-year period, and so far he said what he was going to do when he ran. He's been true to that, and I think he gets enormous credit for that. And over time, I think he'll get better because of that.
You say the coolest part of the job is serving, and yet you repeatedly say that you're not interested in being vice president. But that doesn't mean that if asked to serve, you couldn't be a part of the Mitt Romney administration. For example, you were Secretary of Commerce in the state of Florida before being governor.
Yeah, no, I don't know. You never say never about anything, but this is the time in my life where I've got to stay a little more focused on family things. And so my expectation is that I won't be asked to do much other than to help him get reelected, which I'll do with great joy.
And this means never say never for running for higher office later?
Right. I would never say never, but I also have told people that I'd never say never about playing in the NFL at the age of 59 either. I mean, you can say whatever you want. Realities are realities. And so Helen, the one thing I really wanted to do, and I was open about it, was be governor. That was where my dreams were, and I got a chance to do it. I did it. I was all in. Everything I had, I put into the job. I loved it enormously. To serve this state particularly was the greatest joy in my life. And while I'm involved in politics and policy, and I got enough gray hair now where people feel less threatened by seeking advice, I love being able to help others. I doubt I'll be a candidate for anything going forward.
Governor Jeb Bush, thank you for your time. It's always a pleasure speaking to you, sir.
You bet.
I hope you've enjoyed our conversation with Governor Jeb Bush today, and I invite you to join me for future conversations with other movers and shakers in our world.